I want to talk about Easter, not the candy, not the egg hunts, not the bonnets in the brass section and the smell of lilies filling a sanctuary that sees full attendance exactly twice a year. I want to talk about what happens in the minds of the people sitting in those pews while they celebrate the most cosmically violent and cosmically generous event in their own theological tradition, and what that gap between the celebration and the celebrant reveals about something much older, much darker, and much more dangerous than simple hypocrisy. The resurrection, if you take it seriously on its own terms, is not a comfortable story. It is not a story about your group winning. It is the account of a man who walked directly into the machinery of empire, of religious establishment, of tribal law, of death itself, and refused every single one of those systems the final word. He said, "Give to whoever asks." Not whoever deserves it, not whoever can prove need to a committee, not whoever shares your bloodline or your zip code or your cultural inheritance. Whoever asks. He said, "Love your enemies," not tolerate them at a safe distance, not pray for their conversion so they become more like you. Love them. He said, "The stranger bleeding on the road is your neighbor, and the priest who walked past him is the one who failed the test." The tomb, according to the story being celebrated, did not check documentation. Grace, according to the theology filling those hymn books, does not have a geographic boundary. And yet, here we are, sitting in the pews, sorting humanity with the quiet efficiency of a customs agent. This one is deserving. This one is not. This one is from here. This one is from somewhere we have collectively decided does not count. Plato would recognize this immediately, and he would not be gentle about it. What is being worshipped in that sanctuary is not the form of the good. It is a shadow on the wall of the cave, a local, tribal, distorted copy of a universal principle, mistaken for the thing itself, because the people watching the shadows have never turned around to look at the light. The form of justice, the form of love, the form of the good, these are not local phenomena. They do not diminish at the city limits. They do not weaken as you cross into a different cultural tradition or a different nation state. What is being practiced in that pew is the worship of the shadow, and Plato would tell you carefully, systematically, with the patience of a man who has seen this before, that confusing the copy for the original is not just an intellectual error. It is a moral catastrophe. The Neoplatonists would push further and say the catastrophe is also a spiritual one, because every human soul is an emanation of the One, carrying within it a fragment of the divine light on its long journey outward into matter, and its longer journey back toward the source. When you look at the man who doesn't think the way you do, the one you have decided is unworthy, undeserving, untermensch, you are looking at a soul that shares your origin and your destination. The divine spark inside him is the same light that is inside you. To debase him is not just cruelty. It is a kind of cosmic self-mutilation. It is the one turning against itself, the light trying to extinguish its own reflection, and calling that act righteousness. Marcus Aurelius, who was a Stoic and also a Roman emperor who dealt daily with people from every corner of the known world, put it with the economy of a man who did not have time for elaborate decoration. We are all rational beings, sharing in the universal logos, and that sharing constitutes a bond of kinship that no political boundary, no cultural difference, no accident of birth can dissolve. The Stoics did not get there through sentiment. They got there through logic. If reason is the thing that makes us human, and reason is universal, then the brotherhood of humanity is not a warm feeling. It is a geometric conclusion. The person you are judging across the aisle, across the border, across the cultural divide, that person participates in the same logos you do. Your obligation to them is not charity. It is recognition. Kant would approach the same conclusion from a different angle and arrive with the same quiet devastation. The categorical imperative asks one question. Can you universalize the principle you are operating on? Can you will it as a law for all rational beings? The principle being practiced in that pew, we give to our own, we protect our own, we assign worth based on origin and cultural conformity, does not survive universalization for 5 seconds. If everyone operated on that principle, the system collapses immediately into a war of all tribes against all tribes, which is precisely the world that Jesus, in the theology being celebrated, came to interrupt. You cannot simultaneously celebrate the interruption and practice what it interrupted. Kant would call this a contradiction in the will. I would call it something with fewer syllables. The Protestant tradition, in its deepest and most honest form, is built on the absolute scandal of grace. Grace is not earned. It is not merited. It is not distributed according to cultural fitness or geographic origin or the correctness of your theological lineage. Luther's entire revolution was built on the recognition that the system of earning divine favor, the hierarchy of the deserving and the undeserving, was not Christian theology. It was a corruption of Christian theology, sola gratia, by grace alone. The implications of that principle, taken seriously, are more radical than most Protestant congregations have been willing to follow. If grace is not earned, then the sorting of humanity into the deserving and the undeserving is not a reflection of divine judgment. It is a refusal of it. Eastern Orthodoxy speaks of theosis, the process by which the human being is transformed into the likeness of God, and it speaks of sobornos, the communal unity of all persons in the body of Christ, a unity that does not erase difference but transcends division. The imago Dei, the image of God, is present in every human face without exception. Orthodoxy would look at the man being dismissed as untermensch and say, "You are looking at the icon of God, and you are defacing it." Not metaphorically, theologically. The act of debasing a human being made in the divine image is an act of iconoclasm, and the Orthodox tradition knows exactly what to do with iconoclasts. The Gnostics, who understood something about the machinery of oppression that the mainstream tradition preferred to forget, would say that what is being worshipped in that pew is not the true God at all. It is the demiurge, the lesser God, the God of this world, the God of boundaries and hierarchies and tribal law and the management of scarcity, dressed in the liturgical clothing of the Transcendent. The demiurge builds walls. The true divine breaks them. When the faith of the resurrection becomes the theological justification for sorting humanity by origin and worth, the Gnostics would tell you that the demiurge has won another Sunday morning, and the people in the pews do not know it. The Essenes, the desert community who wrote the Dead Sea Scrolls and organized their entire existence around the distinction between the sons of light and the sons of darkness, they would recognize the psychology immediately, because they practiced a version of it themselves. And their story is instructive precisely because of where it ended. The community that withdrew from the corrupt world to maintain its purity was wiped out entirely. The purity codes did not save them. The walls did not save them. The careful sorting of humanity into the worthy and the unworthy did not produce the kingdom of light they were waiting for. It produced Masada. The Essenes are a cautionary tale about what happens when the maintenance of tribal purity becomes the primary theological project. Jung would say we are watching projection, and he would say it with the calm of a man who has seen the mechanism operate across every culture and every century without exception. The qualities we most despise in the outsider, the laziness, the foreignness, the wrongness of their traditions, the threat they represent to our coherence, are the qualities we have refused to acknowledge in ourselves. The shadow is not the other. The shadow is the disowned self. The fury with which we condemn the Untermensch is directly proportional to the degree to which we recognize, at some level we will not permit to become conscious, that the thing we are condemning lives inside us too. Individuation, the process of becoming fully human, requires integrating the shadow, not projecting it onto the nearest available target and calling that projection righteousness. Jung would look at an Easter congregation sorting humanity and see a room full of people who have outsourced their own darkness onto others and are celebrating the outsourcing as faith. Now I want to say what I actually mean clearly, without decoration. Something is haunting those sanctuaries, and it is older than Christianity. It is older than any of the philosophical traditions I have just walked through. It is the oldest fear there is, the fear that there is not enough, that the circle must be closed, that the stranger at the gate is a threat to the survival of everything inside the walls. That fear is human. It is comprehensible. I am not here to pretend it is simple or stupid. It is ancient and it is powerful, and under sufficient pressure most of us feel it. But what I am saying is this. Every tradition I have named, the Platonic, the Neoplatonic, the Stoic, the Kantian, the Protestant, the Orthodox, the Gnostic, the Essenes negative example, the Jungian, every single one of them, from its own angle with its own vocabulary, looking at its own portion of the elephant, arrives at the same place. The sorting of humanity into the deserving and the undeserving, The local and the foreign, the human and the subhuman, is not wisdom. It is the oldest lie wearing the face of wisdom. And on the one morning of the year specifically designated to celebrate the event that was supposed to expose that lie for what it is, on Easter morning of all mornings, the lie is sitting in the front row with a hymnal in its hands, and nobody is saying a word. I am saying a word. The tomb did not have a guest list. Neither does the light.